Hello and welcome to Markets Daily, hosted by me, Jen Sanasi. On this show, we navigate the currents shaping the crypto markets, providing insights against the broader financial landscape. So, whether you're actively trading or just fascinated by this crazy world that we call crypto, this show is your compass to understanding what's happened, where we are, and where we are going. Joining today's show is Canary Capital Group CEO Stephen McClurg. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jen. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being here. We are in the fourth quarter. It's supposed to be all sunshine and roses, but we're off to a little bit of a rocky start. I like to start the show off by asking my guests what you're watching. So, what are you watching as we head a little bit deeper into Q4?
Yeah, I mean, really what I'm looking at is what the Fed is doing and what central banks around the world are taking action on. So right now, you've got China is moving into a policy of quantitative easing that looks like it could prop up inflation and the value of all risk assets. Bank of England is holding steady on rates, and of course, the U.S. dropped rates by 50 basis points last month. So those are the most important things right now. And of course, the election is going to play a big part in price action and risk assets, including Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
If you had to pick one macro factor that investors should definitely be watching in Q4, which one would you pick out of the ones you just outlined?
Really, what I would be looking at is government spending, and whether it's the US government or the People's Republic of China, uh, looking where they're spending money, and of course, other countries around the world as well. I'm watching very carefully as a lot of countries are buying gold on their balance sheets. Some countries are talking about holding more Bitcoin on their balance sheets. And of course, it is a mixed bag. Like as I mentioned before, there's some countries that are holding tight on policy. Some are hawkish. Some are dovish. So those are really the things that I'm looking at the most right now.
Make sense of that for our audience. What does it mean when countries start holding more gold on their balance sheets? What can we take away from that when we're trying to apply it to our own investment theses?
Yeah. So really, what holding gold is an indication of is there an expectation that there will be inflation. Gold isn't necessarily correlated to inflation like most people think it is, but gold usually is what people buy when they have an expectation that inflation is going to be higher. That also holds true for central banks around the world. When they start buying gold, it means one of two things. They have either have an expectation that there's going to be inflation, either their own currency or the US dollar, or most central banks hold US treasuries and dollars on their balance sheet to peg their own currency to the dollar. When they have an expectation that the dollar is going to be either weak or that there's going to be inflation in the US, which is also essentially the same thing, they do tend to hold other assets other than the dollar, and gold is the go to.
You mentioned Bitcoin as well. Is there one specific or any specific country you're watching when it comes to Bitcoin on the balance sheet and the way it's maybe moving?
I am, and oddly enough, the country I'm looking closely at is the U.S. So what's really interesting is that the Republican candidates this year are really focused on, including Trump, are really focused on making Bitcoin part of the strategic reserves of the country and part of the federal balance sheet. It started off with a few Republican senators and congressmen, and then it went to Trump. And then even last week, we had the first Democrat candidate for Congress come out and say that Bitcoin should be used as a reserve currency. So I think that trend is going to continue, and that most of the Bitcoin that has been seized by the U.S. government for one way or another, uh, politicians are saying that that Bitcoin should be held as a strategic reserve for the U.S.
So if we take that information, we put it into context, what does that mean to you if you were looking at Bitcoin's performance after the election?
Yeah, well, what's really interesting is Bitcoin started off as a currency that was held by developers and then retail, and now institutional. Now that Bitcoin spot ETFs have launched, But once they start being held by governments, that's a whole other level that we haven't really gotten into yet. I mean, we've gotten into it at a smaller level, like El Salvador, but when larger countries start holding Bitcoin as reserves, it can really cause price action, just like gold reserves being held by other countries have caused gold to go up over the last few months. So going into the election, number one, it's a very positive thing for Bitcoin, regardless of who wins, in my opinion. But number two, there is a conversation happening right now where the Democrats are seeing what the Republicans are doing, and they don't want to lose those votes. So I'm hopeful that the Democrats also adopt a stronger policy for their platform around cryptocurrencies.
You mentioned ETFs there, and I want to get a little bit into the institutional discussion, given that you were previously at Valkyrie when the Valkyrie Bitcoin ETF was launched. Talk to me about how you're watching ETF performance. I know recently there has been geopolitical tension that's weighing over risk assets. We're seeing this impact ETFs. We're seeing consecutive days of net outflows. How do we make sense of this if we are watching what's going on with both the Bitcoin and Ether ETF, specifically in the United States?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what I'm seeing is more on the Bitcoin side. You're getting some institutional adoption. Now, most of the people that are buying the Bitcoin ETF is retail, it is financial advisors, but for a lot of pension funds and insurance companies and even sovereign wealth funds that trade securities in the US and hold securities in the US, the Bitcoin spot ETF has been a way for them to get access. Now, eventually, these institutions will focus more on separately managed accounts. Institutional investors typically don't hold ETFs. They hire managers to build custom portfolios for them that's not in the realm of ETFs. But now that the spot ETF has been launched for both Bitcoin and Ethereum, uh, you're seeing a lot more interest and validity to these investment instruments, which will cause some of these institutional investors to buy more Bitcoin. Ethereum actually took an interesting turn, and I had actually predicted that Ethereum would have less than 10% of the net inflows that Bitcoin had when it launched. Well, it actually was less than zero because it's been net outflows so far. So there's been a lot of ETH that's been held captive in the Grayscale product, and now that it's opened up and the other ETFs have opened up, you've seen net outflows. So I actually don't see a whole lot of institutional demand for Ethereum, which a lot of people expected there to be, which is why I had decided not to launch an Ethereum ETF when everybody else did. But I do think that institutional investors are looking for the next thing, right? So Bitcoin, obviously, but Ethereum is sort of its category is older technology. So they're looking at things like Solana or Ripple or HBAR or Avalanche, AVAX. These are the next generation technologies that they're looking at as opposed to Ethereum.
Tell me a little bit more about that. Why do you think the interest is straying away from Ethereum, the second largest cryptocurrency by market cap, to some of these other projects?
Yeah, so I remember back, I left traditional finance for a couple of years to go work at a video game company called Electronic Arts. And it just so happened to be that it was when the iPhone came out. Now, everybody had a Blackberry in their pockets. And previous to that, they all had Palm Pilots. So I kind of look at Ethereum probably more like a Palm Pilot, but maybe like a BlackBerry, where there's some cute applications that are being built on it. Not really that useful, but a lot of people were building, and they did things. But once the iPhone came out and people realized the power of the iPhone, which by the way was built on the usefulness of the BlackBerry, even though everybody had a BlackBerry in their pockets, everybody abandoned it. And I don't think you could find one person on the street that has a BlackBerry anymore. So even though Ethereum owns the market for protocols of its type, these newer blockchains like Solana, for instance, and like HBAR and like Ripple. really are going to take over and replace Ethereum that really hasn't been iterated on a whole lot in the last few years.
Stephen, I see the headline now. Ethereum, the Blackberry of Web3. I think a lot of people will hear you say that and be upset. There are a lot of people who've made really big bets on the Ethereum ecosystem.
Look, there's a lot of people that made really big bets on the BlackBerry and lost a lot of money when that stock went to basically nothing. I hate to say it, people get upset when their bags shrink, but that truly is the reality now. I mean, look, things are still being built on Ethereum, but the reality is it's not fast enough. And it's not even like great for enterprise purposes, in my opinion. I hate, I didn't mean this to be a bag on Ethereum, but hopefully things will change there. But let's use HBAR for example, just for a minute. HBAR was really built for enterprise use. It's being utilized very actively for enterprise use. So I'm kind of getting back around to, why did I get into this space to begin with in 2016? It was really the enterprise applications. And look, what Ethereum did was great. It's kind of like, again, kind of like the Palm Pilot. I remember having the Palm Pilot, and it was so cool because I could download it to my computer, download emails. I could go away, answer emails, plug it back into my computer, and then boom, and it worked. And it really was a building block for everything else that came. But the reality is sometimes technology is outdated, and sometimes better technology comes in, and people buy and utilize that newer technology. So I don't hate on anything that Ethereum's done in the past, but no, it just hasn't really kept up, and it's not really practical for the enterprise uses that other blockchains are being built for.
I think there are probably some young people listening to this show who are Googling what a Palm Pilot is right now. And that really, I think, dates both of us. But
Or a BlackBerry, by the way. Some people don't know what a
right.
BlackBerry is.
I know. I
Yeah.
mean, the Blackberry movie came out recently, so I'm hoping that maybe, it made its way into popular culture for at least long enough for people to
By
know
the
what
way,
we're
I still
talking
have a
about.
BlackBerry. I kept it from 2011 just as a memento of what happens when you don't continue to iterate and update when you have competitors.
That's a great reminder. I mean, I probably have one hanging around at my parents' house or something. I should get that and put it up on the wall as some motivation to continue innovating in my life so I don't get left behind like they did.
Exactly.
Hey everyone, did you know 52 million Americans own cryptocurrencies? That's not just a number, it's a movement, economic, social, and political. Decentralized finance, blockchain, and digital currencies are more than buzzwords, they are the future. This November, it's on us to show up and step up. We need to protect crypto to ensure it continues to fuel innovation and freedom for our families and businesses. Don't let this opportunity slip by. The future of crypto is on the line. Make your voice heard this November and pledge to vote now at standwithcrypto.org/pledge. All right. You mentioned HBAR. I know that you recently launched the HBAR Trust with Canary Group. So you do have some interest there. Talk to me about the conversations you've had that led you to kind of choose HBAR as the trust that you're going to launch, and what kind of interest is there?
Yeah. So what I was looking at when we were launching Canary Capital is, okay, look, I spent 7 years working on getting Bitcoin to a play, working on Bitcoin, making sure that Bitcoin got into an ETF, and I worked on several other iterations of that, along the way, to try to get creative. One of them being, the first Bitcoin futures ETF that traded on Nasdaq, and some other products like that. But when we launched Canary, we're like, okay, well, we've done that. What's next? Okay. And I kept going back to enterprise applications, right? Bitcoin has established itself as the dominant cryptocurrency. But as far as protocols go, where's enterprise going to go, right? If you're, say, Oracle or Intel or Boeing, what blockchains are you going to use? Or if you're a payment system, what blockchains are you going to use? So we kind of went through the list and said, okay, well, HBAR is one of the top ones for enterprise uses because it is designed a little bit more for corporations. You've got, Solana is doing a lot of great things. Ripple, which is something that was designed completely differently over 10 years ago, is doing a lot of interesting things on transfers and you know um, interoperability and even creating its own stablecoin on that network. And that network runs at a very fast and very cheap. So there's a lot of interesting opportunities there. By the way, even like Litecoin again, Litecoin sort of was very popular in 2005, 2006, 2007, kind of faded out a little bit. But now Charlie Lee, the founder, is back involved with the Litecoin Foundation and iterating and making Litecoin better. So it's almost like taking all the aspects of the Lightning Network and reintegrating them back in. So really interested in Litecoin as well. So those are the things that I'm really focused on. It's like, okay, in each category of either enterprise solutions or exchange, which cryptocurrencies are probably in the lead right now. So that's really why we focused on some of those.
Tell me a little bit more about how you do that analysis. I mean, when you look at something like HBAR or Hedera, how do you do that analysis and think into the future that actually this is something that enterprises would want to build on over X, Y, and Z other chain?
Yeah. Well, and I just think about myself, what would I use, right? I mean, way back in my career, I was more on the corporate finance side. And and I think about, okay, well, what is a very powerful tool that I could have used in those days, or even I think about my bond trading days, right? And I think about, okay, and this is the whole reason I got into blockchain to begin with, right? It's like, okay, there's a better way to trade bonds. There's a better way to trade securities. What are the ways to do that are scalable, that would make that would make trading more efficient, or transfer of money more efficient, or even other types of applications more efficient? So the analysis really comes into, okay, number one, is it scalable? Uh, is there adoption, right? Because just because something works really well doesn't mean that people will adopt it. Think about the CD. Remember the CD? Well, there's another thing called the
This is a
mini
real
disc.
blast from the past episode.
Yeah, I know,
I
right?
gotta say,
That's what happens when you get old guys.
I love it. I love it.
But the mini disc was actually better technology than the CD. It was about a fourth of the size. It didn't skip. I remember I had this old Jeep Wrangler, and I had a CD player in there, and they'd always get stolen because like people just pull them out, and it's a Jeep.
Mhm.
And then finally, I replaced it with a mini disc, and nobody wanted the mini disc player, but the CDs always skipped in the Jeep because it's like kind of hit bumps and it would skip and scratch, but the mini disc never did that. And anyway, the mini disc player was much better technology than the CD. It didn't have all the scratches. It was in a case, but it just didn't get the adoption that the CD did because it was poorly marketed. So marketing does play a factor. Adoption does play a factor, but more importantly, the scalability and usability are super important there.
I love that we got CDs in, mini discs, Blackberries, and we even spoke about the revival of Litecoin. This is probably my favorite episode I've recorded. It's just real nostalgic for me.
I love it.
All right, we are nearing the end, and I also like to ask all of my guests this. So I will pose the question to you. If you look at Q4, if you're thinking about allocating a portfolio, given all of the knowledge and expertise you've gained over your years in your career, what assets would you be looking at?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, and I'm going to go pretty broad here because we do run a fund that kind of can allocate to anything, but we are in a bull market in crypto right now. We'll probably be in this bull market for at least another year, if not slightly more than that. So for more for safety, I always love Bitcoin. I'm always more highly allocated to Bitcoin than not because it's one of those assets that I believe will not go to zero, that will always have some kind of demand, and even if it drops 20% a day, which is viable, it has always come back, but we are in a good bull run for cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, and then I try to trade around some of the other cryptocurrencies, a lot that I've already mentioned. But we also trade bonds too. So, I'm an old bond trader. I can't help myself. Use that for more hedging and risk mitigation in the portfolio. But given that interest rates are expected to drop another, in my opinion, 25 basis points in November, another 25 in December, it's actually pretty good for bonds because when yields go down, bond prices go up. So I do like hedging, in a barbell holding bonds. I'm no longer really allocated to mining stocks. I think, we had a nice run in Bitcoin mining publicly traded stocks last year. It is a good time to be building mining facilities, and it is a good time to be buying hash. But the Pepcos will probably underperform Bitcoin.
Stephen, thank you so much for that alpha and the insight you provided on this show. Thanks for joining Markets Daily.
Thank you, Jen.
And thank you to our audience for watching. If you enjoyed this podcast and any of the other podcasts on the CoinDesk Podcast Network, you can subscribe. We are available on all podcast platforms. And if you prefer to watch, we're on YouTube. Like, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Thanks for coming on this journey with me to better understand the crypto markets. And we'll see you next time.